Alô? Alô, alô, hello? Hello? Looking for, so it's not the mentor, it's just like a karaoke here. I think you might be safer with this one, because this is like getting So, welcome to the Creators Academy.
Thank you.
This is our stage. This is our stage. I'm going to explain in Portuguese, so...
Please do.
Olá a todos vocês. Vocês estão ok com o inglês? Dá tudo de boa? Porque aqui nesse palco não tem tradução simultânea. A gente não é tão chique, tá? Então a gente vai falar em português. Bom, vocês conhecem o Matt Pat. I'm gonna introduce you, but I think they know you, but anyways. Um dos caras mais geniais com quem eu tive contato nesse universo de criação de conteúdo digital. Eu acho que o que mais me encanta no trabalho deles é que eles são cientistas, matemáticos, math, e eles trazem essa coisa da matemática das plataformas digitais para o universo de criação de conteúdo. Ele foi um dos primeiros caras a falar sobre algoritmo, hackear algoritmo de YouTube, etc. E ele usa essa lógica muito para fazer crescimento de canal. Ele ajudou diversos canais gigantescos dos Estados Unidos a serem grandes de verdade. E ele veio aqui, a gente tem 2 horas com ele para tirar todas as dúvidas que a gente quiser. E a maneira como vai funcionar o Diego vai passar, cadê o Diego? O Diego que não está prestando atenção. Levanta a mão, já temos uma pergunta ali. Então levanta a mão, temos outra pergunta ali. O Diego vai passando com o microfone. Vocês fazem perguntas e o Matt e a Stephanie vão responder. Alright? So, it's a Q&A. I introduced you, but maybe you can like do it better. But I think they know you. So they'll ask questions and you shine.
Great. Sounds fantastic.
Sounds easy, right?
Yeah, a piece of cake. So hey, hi everyone. Hey, hi. Your hair is great, by the way. Fantastic. So I have no idea what was just said about us. So I'm just gonna do the usual spiel of hi, I'm Matthew and this is Stephanie.
Hey guys.
And we run the nerdiest channels on YouTube, I think. Basically, they are called Game Theory and Film Theory, as well as GT Live, our live streaming show. And what we do is we take video games, movies, and TV, and we fuse them together with science, math, and history. So you got nerdy topics over here, you get them fused together with nerdy topics over here to create super nerdy topics around stuff like, hey, Super Mario, he could probably be diagnosed as a sociopath, medically. Or, did you know that in Frozen, if you look at the eye colors of Anna and Elsa, the 2 princesses, that technically they shouldn't be related, and that they're more likely related to the princess from Tangled. So that is the sort of stuff that we do. We've been doing YouTube for coming up on 8 years now. In total, we have, I think, 21, so we have 20 million subscribers on YouTube across the 3 channels. And we have 27 million across like all the different social platforms, Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. So we are more than happy to talk about literally anything, be it YouTube culture, anything digital video or online content related, video games. The cool thing about Campus Party is that it literally encompasses everything from new tech. We've done experiments in VR and AR, to gaming, obviously, to marketing. We consult other people on digital video trends. Stephanie actually heads up our consulting efforts.
Yeah, so I was going to mention that a little bit too. So everyone knows Matthew. They know Matthew's face, and he's all over, his face is just everywhere. I work behind the scenes, so when it comes to the parts of Campus Party that have to do with business, doing deals behind the scenes, marketing, that kind of stuff, and just what it takes to start your own business, because YouTubers are their own little businesses, right? Everyone is their own small business, and getting that off the ground and figuring out how to do that is kind of hard, especially in like tech and digital media where everything is the Wild West and there are no rules. You just like make them up as you go. So we are happy to talk about that if there are any startup like entrepreneurs in that space here too.
So with that, I think, do we open the floor just for questions? Yeah, I think that sounds good. There we go. We got one right there.
Just
and
kidding.
You've been ignored, but that's okay. No, you know what?
Okay.
You do you. We have like 2 hours back to back.
Yeah,
they're gonna be sick of us by the end of this. We're gonna be talking their ears off. It's great.
Hi, good night. I hope my English is okay for you.
Sure.
I would like to ask about a thing that you spin off sometimes on your channel, that about how YouTube works. What's your take on attention economy, and what is the responsibility of the creators about that topic?
Yeah. So just to repeat the question, as I understand it, so about with our understanding of the way that YouTube works, and the fact that we live in an attention economy right now, what is our take on the concept of an attention economy, and I guess sort of how we deal with that? Yeah. Do you want to start?
I think it's interesting, and I like the way that you're looking at attention as a means of social currency, right? I think it's easy to undervalue that idea because you have these digital video platforms that are all vying for not only your views, but also like they want you to stay on the platform as long as possible, right? YouTube wants you to stay on YouTube watching videos for as long as possible. Twitter wants you, staying on Twitter for as long as possible, and on and on and on. Twitch wants you watching the 9-hour live stream of like 100% completion of Dark Souls by the end of the day. And so not only is it an attention-based economy on an individual platform, like, look at me, I need to have more clickbaity videos with brighter colors and more attention-grabbing titles than anyone else, but also the platforms themselves are vying for your attention. As far as our viewpoint in that, I think at the end of the day, to win out in an attention-based economy, you need to be a good storyteller. Because regardless of whether you're reviewing makeup, or if you're playing video games, or if you're doing educational theories about, some movie, all of it, or if you're a vlogger, all of it, or brands too. Like brands are another good example. If I'm a commercial product who's looking to sell what I do and what I make, you have to be a good storyteller. Us humans are attuned to listening to other people and their narratives. The start, the middle, and the end. And so for any of these, yes, the algorithms are going to reward you based on, are you keeping people watching? How do you get people watching? Tell them a compelling story. Start off with your origin story, move on to the problem in the middle, and give them a good, solid conclusion at the end. When we write game theory episodes and film theory episodes, I'm constantly looking at what isn't just a good theory, but what is telling a good story along the way? What is the evidence that we're using in between? We're structuring out everything like a 5-7 paragraph essay, so that way there's a solid thesis and there's a solid conclusion with a little twist or a so what at the end. So that way at the end you're rewarded for watching through to the completion so that the story is complete. The most successful vloggers right now that you see online are all people who are, every single vlog, it's not, like, it may appear like, oh, I just flipped on a camera and you're going with me through the day, but that's actually deceiving. What's going on behind the scenes, and we know these people who do this, we talk to them, we know how they work. They're actively looking at their videos and saying, what is the 3-act structure of my vlog? What is the mission statement for that video, and what are people going to walk away at the end? Did we complete our mission and what the goal was, or did we not?
Yeah, exactly. There's every video in every genre on YouTube, no matter what it is, always tells a story. The only thing I would add to that, when it comes to the attention-based economy, you have to, in some ways, set your own boundaries as well, right? So one of the big problems that exists on YouTube, and one of the reasons why you have all of these brand safety issues on YouTube, is that people keep trying to one-up themselves. They keep trying to push all the boundaries further and further, and it gets to a point where it starts to cross lines that either make people uncomfortable or inappropriate, but they're all competing for that attention, right? They're all just pushing farther and farther to see, can I hold on to that attention a little bit longer? And when you're a content creator or a business or whoever, you have to set those boundaries of, here's what I'm willing to do, here's what I'm not willing to do, and I'm going to try and get your attention, but I'm going to try and get it for the right reasons, for reasons that I believe in, and here are the lines that I'm okay with, and then I'm not going to push farther than where I'm comfortable. And I think that's something that people don't think about enough, but they're starting to really have to, because we're like right at that point.
Well, and also the platforms are also starting to help kind of delineate where those boundaries exist, right? Because I think at the end of the day, humans all want to kind of succeed on their own, right? They all want, like, I want all the success for me. And so you will...
greedy.
But it's one of those things where, like, because humans are just by their nature just like greedy, like they will constantly, you'll always have someone out there who's looking to like do the next most extreme thing. And so the platforms now are doing a much better job in recognizing this. If they're not stepping in and saying, okay, here's where our platform's boundaries are, you do get this unending escalation. And so as a creator or as, a brand or whatever, decide your own limits. And, does that work with the platform that you're working with or not? That's the other kind of flip side to that question.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Seth. And I'm following your channel since the beginning, and I really like your channel, both of them. Actually, I'm following also the other channels that were born inside game theory, such like Gaijin Goomba or the other channels that came after that. And I have a question about some copyright problems that you might have. You have a lot of content from other creators, from media creators, and we had the apocalypse. I don't know if that impacted you very much, and if those media are coming at you to promote their work, or if they are claiming against you.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a whole really interesting and big topic. So we were very fortunate that when Adpocalypse happened, we definitely saw the effects, and we got much more careful because of that. But we weren't impacted, because we don't use a lot of swear words. We don't show a lot of violence in our videos, stuff like that. So we were able to skate through a lot of that stuff. But since the very beginning, and Matthew can speak to this better, but we've always been very careful on the copyright side to try and be as respectful as we can about everything we're using, and also to make sure that we're not doing anything that would get us flagged unnecessarily. One thing that I think is really interesting though is that as you get bigger as a creator, and as our channels have gotten much bigger and bigger, we have to be so much more careful about what we use. When our channels were small, like 50, 100,000 subscribers or something, which isn't small, but it's much smaller than they are now. If we found some fan art online or something like that, didn't have anyone's name on it or anything like that, and we used it in a video, sometimes that person would show up and be like, oh my gosh, that was my art, that's awesome, that's so cool. Now, if we accidentally use someone's fan art, they're like, how could you do that? How dare you use my fan art? And so it's very different. I think the bigger you are, the more you have to be very careful and very respectful to make sure that you're not putting stuff out there that people don't want out there, actually. Like maybe they just made that art for themselves or for their own really small community. And when you're a bigger channel, you have to be really aware that, you know, any little thing that goes into your video goes out to a huge number of people, and that has a lot of that has a lot of consequences.
So when it comes, and to bring it back to kind of the big media companies, and us using a lot of video game footage and a lot of film and television footage, YouTube, here's YouTube's recommendation, right? They're like, oh, are you getting a lot of false claims? Talk to the media companies and get on their white lists. And it's like, what world do you live in, YouTube? Like, how do you know what you're at? They're not going to respond to us. Like, I don't care how big our channel is. Like, they don't listen. And also, how do you find the right person? Like, it's impossible. And so what we've done, and we've kind of tried to adopt creative skirting of like automatic claims into our aesthetic of the videos, right? We've taken kind of what could be seen as a limitation of the platform and try to make it into a positive of something that feels unique to the way that we present stuff on screen, right? And so what I mean by that is, you know, there is the idea of fair use on the platform, that if you use a very small segment and you comment on it and you change it in some way, that you should be protected in your usage of that clip. So we have an internal rule for any editing that we do, for any video that we release, that we can't make clips longer than 6 seconds without cutting them or having something over top or doing a joke or whatever. That in turn prevents us from, like, if we do get a claim, we can automatically point to it and say, no, we transformed that work, and also it wasn't a substantial enough portion of your original work that it should have been claimed in the first place. So first off, that like 6 second rule is really important. Secondly, a lot of just like manual claim, or not manual claims, a lot of automatic claims happen because the system just blanket sweeps everything, right? Without rhyme or reason, without regard to what the video is actually about. And so what we do also to kind of help prevent that is those systems are motion-based. They create a heat map of your video and all the movement that's happening on screen around your video, and then match that heat map every second of every video into every other heat map that YouTube has ever created for every video that's ever been released on the platform. It's crazy, and it all happens in the think about this. I gotta, like, we all give YouTube a really hard time, and rightfully so in a lot of cases. But when you think about the systems that are in place, it's really impressive. These heat maps are being run across millions upon millions of others in the time that it takes to upload your video, which is wild. And so YouTube will be like, how confident am I that this video that's just being uploaded matches this other heat map that exists on the platform somewhere else? And then based on that confidence interval, it'll either say, no, this is fine, or, oh, let's send it to the original copyright holder to flag it, right? And so other ways that you can kind of prevent that from happening and lessen the confidence interval is by having other things on screen moving. And so on film theory especially, one of the things that we've adopted is having like things in the corners that relate to the movie that we're talking about moving. They rotate in the corners, and it's a cool little aesthetic thing, right? It's like, hey, we're talking about Avengers, and in the corner you see Thanos and his glove in the other corner, and they're moving. It's an aesthetic choice, but it's also something that has practical purpose because it's reducing the confidence that YouTube has that, oh, that's a clip from Infinity War. So couple that movement with the shorter clip length and all the other commentary that we're doing on top of it, and that helps ensure that the claiming that we're dealing with is at a minimum level. And so maybe 1 in every 30, maybe 1 in every 20 videos gets a flag every now and then. We can then dispute it with full confidence, saying, no, this is entirely within our rights. And usually at that point, it was like an intern or someone who flagged it, and they're like, oh yeah, this is fine, you're okay.
But no music, ever.
Never music.
No
never
music.
You will never win that battle. You will never win that battle. Like, that is the one bright line that we have in what we do. Clips, from video games, movies, TV, whatever,
all fine. No music.
Never
ever.
touch music. If you have more than like 3 notes, you will be claimed and you will not win that fight. Guaranteed. Like, to give you an example of this one, we did an episode on SpongeBob SquarePants, and the beginning was me riffing on the intro of the SpongeBob SquarePants.
It was Matthew singing like the sort of the song, but
yeah,
not really.
It was me going like, what? Okay, and that was it. Like that's all I did. And the music label who licenses that song claimed the video, and I'm like, no, and we disputed it. We're like, no, that is me. I have the audio file. I don't sing any of the notes, and I'm just like doing an impression of the pirate's voice, right? And they no matter how many times we dispute it, they keep claiming it. And there's like, unless we take it to court, which why would we at this point? But it's one of those things that like you will not win. Music is a zero-sum game. Do not do it. And if you are doing a parody song, be really careful, because even then, like, if it's even moderately close, you'll be claimed. So, like, that is the one thing that I would say is don't touch music. That's why, for as much as I would love it to exist, music theory can never be a thing. Like, music theory was always my third channel that I wanted to do. Always. I thought it would be a lot of fun to, like, look at music label conspiracies, and let's look at the deeper meanings of songs, and this, and like teach everyone about progressions and lyrics and, you know, chord structures and this and that, but we can never do it because the lyrics will be claimed, the note progressions will be claimed, the music videos will be claimed. It'll be claimed 3 times over. It's impossible.
Amazing.
Other questions?
I have a disclaimer. If anyone is shy or not comfortable to ask in English, just raise the hand. We can translate to you or write in a paper and we'll get it too, okay? Oh, wait, he was first.
We have Google Translate. We can pull it out.
Yeah. The lady was first, and then I'll go back and etc.
Hi, Matt. I have a question for you, and sorry because I am so nervous.
No, you're fine.
And my English, oh my God.
Hey, guess what? Your English is a lot better than my Portuguese.
Thank you. I have a question for you, and if you were to give a hint to starting in YouTube, which one would you give? And for, oh my gosh.
No, it's okay. If you could like give a tip for someone who is starting a channel, say something to help them out, what would you say?
Yep. Oh my gosh, there's so many things that we would say to starting creators at this point.
Yeah. Try and keep it brief.
There's so many things, Stephanie, and we have 2 hours. We can talk about it forever.
Go for it.
Okay, so first and most importantly is do it because you love it, you know, and choose a topic that you're going to be passionate about talking about or interested in doing now and 8 years from now. Because at this point we have done a couple hundred episodes of game theory and film theory, and you know, I still love doing the theories. It's still super fun all these years, but like, you know, you have a lot of gamers who have done literally thousands of videos on their channel for 7 years plus, and you know, it's a long time. And so do it because you're passionate about it, do it because you're going to be excited to still talk about it in success, and also do it because you're passionate about it, because if it doesn't take off, right? And I think there's this interesting mental shift that's happened nowadays where because you see the PewDiePies of the world and the Markipliers of the world and this and that, who all have the Lubas of the world, Brazilian YouTuber reference, because you see all these channels with massive follower counts, the kids nowadays grow up wanting to be like, I'm going to make a living playing video games online. And it's hard. It is a hard business, and because a lot of people want to do it, you know, the chance of success is very thin, right? So if you do it with the expectation of, I'm doing it because I want to create, because I want to express my viewpoint on something that I love, and it's something that I can look at that video, and regardless of the ad revenue it made or the subscribers it converted, that's something I'm proud of and that I'm confident in, and that like you know, hey, maybe it launches me into a job somewhere or something like that. Like, get value out of it beyond just like the AdSense and the notoriety. We started Game Theory at my lowest of low points when no one wanted to hire me because they thought I was this weird theater kid. And we started it with the motto of don't expect to make money from your blog. And it was a blog back then. Vlogs were a whole other, like, whoa, there's video blogs? This is crazy. And for the first 4 years of the show, we didn't monetize like anything. Like, we didn't turn on ads because I was too afraid of copyright. I was afraid of this thing that I had built being taken down by like video game companies. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm using everyone's IP. They're gonna all claim me. But at the end of the day, I was able to say, hey, I did this thing and I'm proud of it because of what it is and not because of the money that it made. So that would be number one, just from a holistic standpoint. Number two, though, and you can hop in whenever, but like number two, though, I would say is from a more practical standpoint, ask yourself what platform you want to be on. It doesn't necessarily have to be a YouTube, right? And I think, you know, a lot of people feel like they need to be everywhere, right? Oh my gosh, TikTok is a new thing. I gotta be on there. And also, I still gotta have my YouTube presence and my Twitch account, and I need to do live streams and Instagram stories and Instagram TV and, you know, Twitter and Facebook and blah, 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 blah. No, you don't. Decide what you wanna do, and then find the platform that's the best fit for what you wanna do. Do you want to do long live streams that are, you know, gaming oriented? Great. Do it on Twitch, honestly. Like, that's going to be the best place for you. And specifically, do you want to do long live streams that are gameplay oriented that are about like really serious games? The Dark Souls of the world, the Blizzard games, the Activision games, Hearthstone, things like that. That works better on Twitch than it ever will on YouTube. YouTube is not that sort of platform. If you want to do live streams that are personality oriented and shorter and whatever, that's where you go to YouTube. That's where you want to be. But also, like, do you want to do short form comedy content, which is something that on YouTube has been pushed out because the algorithms are all about watch time and longer watch sessions. Short form content just doesn't really perform the way it used to on YouTube. Nowadays, it's got to be over 15 minutes. So if you want to do short comedic sketches, hey, check out TikTok, check out Instagram TV, check out Twitter. Like, those are all places that is going to work better, and you're ultimately not going to be buried under, you know, snowed under because the algorithms aren't favoring what you're doing, but instead you're going to be received on platforms that those sorts of things still work, and in fact, they're actively looking to get more video creators on there. It's a less crowded space, and so you can perform a lot better there.
Yeah, and I think the third thing after you've decided sort of what general format you're doing and what platform you should probably be doing it on is to look at that platform and see what's already there. Don't ever jump into a platform that you don't know anything about, that you don't watch. You should watch any platform that you're interested in being on. And you'd be shocked at how many companies we have to tell this to, like big companies who like, we want to be on Instagram and we want to be on YouTube, and we're like, okay, so what do you watch? Who do you follow on Instagram? What YouTube channels do you watch? And they can't name any of them. And so it's not just about being like, I want to do this thing and I think I want to do it on this platform. Go to that platform. Make sure you know it. Make sure that it's a platform that you like to spend time on, because that's going to reflect in whether your audience wants to spend time there with you. And also, there's just a lot on a lot of these platforms, right? YouTube has so much on it, and it's not, you know, at this point there's so much that you might actually find a channel that's sort of already doing sort of the thing that you want to do or something close to it. And so studying those channels who are already doing something that's sort of close to what you're doing teaches you a lot. It teaches you like, hey, maybe part of what I want to talk about is already out there, but there are pieces missing from the channels that I see, right? There are these things that, you know, I see people talking about some of the things I like, but there are other places that, stuff I love that I don't think is out there. No one else is talking about this. Those are the places you want to go. And there are always those places. No matter how many people end up on YouTube, there are always going to be perspectives that are new. You just have to find the place where you can come through as a voice that no one else has out there and as something unique, because if you're just doing the exact same vlogs or the exact same pranks that everyone else has been doing for a long time, that's not going to set you apart, right? And it's probably also not going to feel very satisfying as a creator.
It's also one of those things, too, where if you find someone who's doing kind of similar things to what you want to do, maybe you join up together. I mean, one of the big things, like you mentioned earlier, Gaijin Goomba. We have The Science by Austin Horrigan on Game Theory right now. We had Did You Know Movies on Film Theory for a while. Our channels were founded on this principle of, hey, I can only do one, back in the day, I could only do one video a month. And the system requires, even back then, they're like, we're not as hard as we are nowadays on channels, but like one video a month, Matt, come on, like, speed up the process a little bit. And I'm like, I can't. I'm doing all this on like nights and weekends, guys. This is me talking to the system that is YouTube.
Yeah, it's literally you talking to your computer screen.
This is me talking to myself, which I do frequently. In the closet most often. Or in this case, I recorded a video earlier today in like with a blanket over me in our hotel room, snuggled between the two beds, so that way I could get the sound as dead as possible. But our channels were founded on this idea of, hey, you're a creator who's doing stuff that is similar to, a similar idea, educational content through gaming. You're doing it on your channel. You're only able to produce a video every other week or every month. I'm doing that too. Let's work together, because our powers combined, we're going to be able to grow faster and more effectively when we're together rather than us doing our own separate things apart, right? And your skill set complements my skill set. Why don't we actually partner up rather than, trying to build our own separate things and ultimately kind of losing out in this battle? Stephanie mentioned companies not watching YouTube and not have, like, I want to be on YouTube, but I can't cite any, like, popular channels. Would you guys be okay with like a little like dish on YouTube right now, a little like drama story? This is kind of funny.
Are we spilling the tea?
Can I spill some tea on YouTube right now? Okay, so YouTube has started this thing where every year they invite like 100 to 150 top channels to go to, like, in the US it's to New York, but they're starting to do it in like, there's like one for Asian creators now. I think there's one for South American creators now, where it's called their Creator Summit, right? Where they bring in all the like most popular channels or the most important channels to them to just like give them a lay of the land, get them to meet each other, get them to meet YouTube representatives, things like that. It's a very cool event. And I've been fortunate enough to go since the very earliest days. The channel was big enough in the early days that they're like, come on out, man. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But speaking of them not listing out YouTubers, right? Or not watching YouTube, the head of business at the company has 100 creators, top channels, all with millions of subscribers in the room. The first ever one of these events. This is the big kickoff to this like big experiment that they're doing. And he's like, man, guys, he's standing up on stage and he's like, man, guys, it is such an honor and privilege to be in a room with so many powerful, influential creators who are super users of our platform. I am so excited to be here with the likes of... And he looks out to the audience and he can't name a single actually, that's not true. He can name one, and it's Hannah Hart, who did My Drunk Kitchen back in the day. Spoiler alert, Hannah Hart was on a billboard outside of the building that this meeting was going in because she was part of this like featured creator program thing, right, where they were driving awareness. So he's like, amazing creators on YouTube like Hannah Hart and all the rest of you. And it was just so uncomfortable and awkward and amazing, and just reiterates what Stephanie was saying earlier, which is this idea of a lot of people, YouTube included, want to like use YouTube, want to be on YouTube, want to make the most of it, but a lot of times they're not doing their homework. They're not watching stuff because to them it's not interesting. But as creators, as brands, as video makers, whatever you see yourself as citizens of the digital video ecosystem, it behooves you to watch as much as you can and be familiar with as much as you can. Am I looking to like become a makeup guru? No, absolutely not. But am I watching James Charles right now because he's one of the biggest, hottest creators on YouTube? Absolutely I am. Am I watching PewDiePie and his meme review every week so I'm in touch with everything that's going on right now? Absolutely I am. I'm clapping along with it and I'm rooting alongside him with T-Series. You know, like, am I doing subscribe to PewDiePie? Absolutely. And am I watching Mr. Beast? Absolutely I am. Because here's the thing, as a smart content creator, you need to be relevant with the audience. And these people are shaping the platforms that you're working on. And so if you're not following, I don't care if you like them or not, if you're not watching them, you are not doing your job effectively. You need to be aware of the systems that you're playing around with. Twitch, same thing. Twitter, same thing. Like, it doesn't matter where you're making your home. Digital video platforms have a unique language. They have a lingo. They have a culture, just like the maker culture, just like the gamer culture, just like the VR culture over here. Like, there's the marketing culture, whatever. That is what Campus Party is founded on, this idea of all these cultures coming together. It behooves you to immerse yourself in those cultures before you dive in and expect success.
The one thing that Matthew didn't say before we move on to the next question, the one thing that Matthew left off of his YouTube Dish story is that the next year that he went to the Creator Summit, they did this clothesline, like a clothesline where they hung up all the YouTuber pictures of all the YouTubers who were there with their names on their pictures. And Matthew goes down the line looking for himself, and again, to this exact same point that we've been making, he finds the picture that's labeled Matthew Patrick, and it's a picture of some other guy. It's not even a picture of him. Whoever put that together couldn't even bother to find the right Matthew on the internet. They just like did a Google image search or something. They found the wrong guy and then put it up on the wall.
Yeah, for a while, it was me versus this Broadway theater actor who was also named Matthew Patrick, and like our photos were always competing for #1 in Google photo search. And so the person who put that clothesline together was just like, oh, this must be good enough, whatever.
Next question.
So the third chair is for your kid?
What's that? The chair's for our kid? Yeah, he sadly couldn't get his passport in time, unfortunately.
What's your take on the thing that that happened to Monkey Jones? That YouTube killed the channel.
Monkey Junks?
Monkey Junks? I don't know that, actually. So what's the situation?
In one day, he take 3 strikes in less than 12 hours.
Huh.
He was one of the most edgy creators of YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, he was very big.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to look into this, by the way.
Just poof.
Yeah.
Died.
So, yeah.
So
No, go ahead.
And he created another channel, and the same thing happened.
Huh.
And the people that analyze it just can think of one thing, because it's too much things that happened that they just can think of. YouTube wanted to kill the channel. And what's your
what sort of content did he do?
Did content like iDubbbz.
Like iDubbbz?
Like
okay. Like Content Cop and stuff? Or kind of, okay, like a little risque? Yeah, okay. So, yeah. So, if you're familiar with our channels, you may know, and this isn't specifically to Monkey Junks, since I can't truly comment, but I do know this. We're kind of embroiled in this big drama right now with the closure of Defy Media, which was an MCN, a multi-channel network, who aggregated a bunch of other channels, gave them services, and then took like a pay cut from them before sending their ad revenue checks to them. They closed down because they were kind of a shady business, and we're trying to get our money back from them. This is kind of this ongoing saga with the channel, right? Having worked at an MCN, though, and specifically that MCN, I saw a lot of the shady tactics that other companies would use to kill off each other using YouTube's own systems, right? So this is one I haven't talked about on the channel, but probably I should include in one of these upcoming videos about how weird they are.
Yeah.
Clip licensing and like collecting viral clips is a huge business on YouTube. It's a huge, like, ever since the days of America's Funniest Home Videos, or like the first person to get kicked in the crotch and someone filming it, right? Like, thus the funny YouTube video was born. And there's a huge business of people reaching out to these, like, random home video makers being like, I'll buy your clip for $100, and then I'm gonna sell it to like all these other sources for $1,000, and we're gonna make money, and you're gonna make a little bit of money, whatever. And Defy actually had a clip licensing business like that. They did, another company did, and there was this new player on the field called Fail Army at the time, but now called Juke Media. And I heard internally that because there were 3 major clip licensing companies that were all competing for the same clips, only so many people can get hit in the face with a shovel in a comedic way and it to go super viral, right? And so everyone, as soon as that video would start to go viral on Reddit, everyone would attack that person being like, we want to buy it. No, we want to buy it. No, we want to buy it. And so you want to eliminate your competition, right? And so what they would do is 2 of the 3 companies would get together and they would create alliances with each other and hold off on their copyright strikes and launch them all at the same time on the rival company in order to try and get it shut down. So all of a sudden, a company, like, they'd be like, oh, that's our video, we own the license to that one. Oh, that's our video too, we own the license to that one. And they would withhold on issuing those copyright strikes until a coordinated attack where all of a sudden we're launching 10 copyright issues on this channel, and all of a sudden the channel's taken up because based on YouTube's terms of service, if you get more than 3 strikes, you're out, right? And so companies would exploit this system to eliminate their competition. Now, that isn't the same thing as Monkey Junk, but it does show weaknesses in how YouTube's policies can be and how other people, and in this case, multi-million-dollar businesses can exploit them for their own benefit. As far as this particular channel is concerned, I'm not 100% sure, but I do know, like, here's my viewpoint on the whole situation, right? I think based on YouTube's, like, as long as you're falling within YouTube's terms of service, you should be fine, right? Like, I think YouTube has done a poor job of outlining where those limitations exist.
And they leave a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
There are some of those terms of service where there's definitely some gray area, and sometimes if you're a creator who's been on the platform for a long time, or you're a creator who YouTube knows, or a lot of people at YouTube, I think you tend to end up on the nicer side of that gray area than if you're not. So there's some room for personal error. So it's not just machines. Sometimes a person actually has to make a call, and those people can be swayed one way or the other. And then the actual way that YouTube communicates all of their rules and guidelines. I mean, we have conversations with YouTube every few weeks or something like that, and we still will go to them and say, this isn't clear. Is it okay to show this in a video or isn't it? And they come back to us and they say something like, well, sometimes it depends, or it maybe depending on what else is in the video, or maybe depending on what the thumbnail looks like or whatever. And it's all of these gray areas where I think people can get stuck and have actually a really bad time.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where as long as you're within the terms of service, you should be able to upload anything that you want to. And I think those terms of service are broad enough to allow a lot of things on the platform. Whether or not you're entitled to monetization, I think is, like, that's a business call, right? And a lot of times that's not even YouTube's call, that's the call of the advertisers who are buying that advertising space. So I think the idea of, like, because I uploaded a video onto YouTube, I should get it monetized. I think that's where, like, creators and, like, brands and YouTube have differing viewpoints. Like, you can use the platform. That doesn't necessarily entitle you to be able to make money off of the platform. But here's the biggest tea that I'm going to spill, and I can't wait to do a video on this one because this just occurred to us the other day. But the thing is, YouTube is a PG-13 platform. In order to have an account on YouTube, you must be over 13, right? I think that's the latest age.
13.
If you are under 13, you are supposed to be using the Kids app, right? And so all this problem with brand safety and, like, are advertisers okay on here and this and that, it's all a moot point. Like, the thing that everyone forgets is that it is a 13 and older platform. I don't know. To me, it seems like in all of this, like, push to get more advertisers on the platform and, like, all people are scared of, stuff being racist or whatever on YouTube, people have forgotten this idea of, like, no, by the terms of service and by the way digital video platforms work, you have to be 13 and over. If you want to be in a safe space...
Not that things should be racist. Not that that should be a thing.
No, certainly not. No. But, like, you have one creator do one video in one corner of YouTube, and it's like, oh, this whole platform is toxic. Like, we gotta, no, I don't know if we can believe this sort of thing. It's a weird system, and it's a dangerous system. But, yeah, so it's complicated. But now that you've brought this to my attention, I'm going to look into this, and I'll have a better viewpoint on it. Thanks for talking to me about it. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Jeez. As long as companies and YouTube themselves aren't using the systems that are in place to censor other people, and I think that's one of the big things, right, is this concern over censorship and where those lines exist. And I think that's a tricky gray area that not just YouTube, but all digital video platforms are trying to figure out now, right? Facebook is trying to figure out because everyone was worried about all the fake news that was in their feeds. Twitter's trying to figure it out because you have people like InfoWars in the States, which is like conspiracy theories, or a lot of people consider it pretty extremist viewpoints. Should he have a right to be on Twitter, but he's spreading like fake news and lies and this and that? Like, is that allowed on the platform, or by taking him off, are you censoring him? We're in this really interesting age where all of these platforms have tremendous amounts of power. They have tremendous influence, and the algorithms are deciding what you see, what you consume, and what you consider fact or not. And I think now you're starting to see that we're in this inflection point where the platforms have to say, okay, we have to stand up and take into account the ethics of our... It used to be, hey, we just need to make a buck. We just need to be a successful platform. We just need users. We just need interesting content. Now it's, what are the ramifications of this AI that we've set loose to determine what is and isn't valid content, and how is it going to... I'm shooting it. I'm shooting ethical content out of my fingertips. We're deciding now, how is this shaping the future of what people consume, what they believe, and how they interact with the world around them. And that's where you fall into these weird gray areas. And it's a scary time and it's a dangerous time, but it's an important time. And I'm hoping, that they're talking to the right people and looking at the right examples as they're kind of figuring out where those boundaries exist. More questions. Hey.
Oh, I wanted to ask you about YouTube's behavior regarding its problems, or like YouTube's response to the complaints that the community and the creators themselves has. Because like you guys said, YouTube is a company that is massively distant from the users themselves in the community. They don't tend to them. They tend to these companies, and that's reflected in the system. The copyright system that's majorly flawed, the and you see ridiculous things, like you said, you got your video claimed because you said the SpongeBob thing. PewDiePie had the entire video claimed because he sang Despacito, things like that. And YouTube has shifted from like pretending that it doesn't exist, that the system is perfect, to at least acknowledging it. And they do go back and forth between these two. But you think like this is just simple damage control, or they are actively trying to make the platform better?
So, you know, it's interesting because in this day and age, having a nuanced perspective is really hard, right? We live in the era of Twitter where everything has to be like the best or the worst. You know, everything has to be a superlative. And so YouTube is easy to paint into the corner of being the villain here, but I think in topics like this, I think we can talk about it as a more nuanced thing, right? Where if you look at what YouTube has to do, they're in this really difficult position, right? On one hand, they have creators who are using the platform to create all sorts of stuff. You know, some of it brand safe, some of it not, gaming related, some of it using copyrighted IP, some of it not, like all of that. Then you also have the brands who, you know, YouTube has to listen to some extent because as a company they need to be profitable, right? If they're not listening to the brands to some extent, YouTube as a platform doesn't exist. And all the good that it brings to the millions of people who use it suddenly goes away. You know, that creative outlet goes away, and quite frankly, the economy that it created goes away. You know, the millions of people who have jobs off of YouTube, working on YouTube, not just as creators, but like as channel managers and whatever, and social media managers, this and that. Like, it has a huge ripple effect. So, you know, they have to listen to brands to some extent. And then also, like, they have to fight and guard against this like dark series of people who are like the hackers, right? Like the bad actors who are off in the shadows and trying to find every loophole possible to like exploit the system. And it's a really hard balance to, and then also they're like beholden to Google too. Like Google, like one of the biggest companies in the world, hey, you're helping to define the future of entertainment, like, you know, figure it out. And so it's a tough balancing act. And I think from my experience, talking with YouTube, working with, and working across all digital platforms. Like at this point, we've had tons of meetings with Twitter, we've had tons of meetings with Facebook, we've had tons of meetings with Twitter. Like we know all these platforms. And YouTube is better than most at actually listening to the people who use it and create on it. And I know it a lot of times it doesn't seem like they do. The thing you have to remember though too is like people use it in hundreds of thousands of different ways. And so they're trying to listen to like some of the biggest problems and some of the biggest issues and correct for those, all while not throwing off a system that's like really finely, like it's tricky. It's a really tricky balance. And so they're more receptive and more attentive to creators than a lot of other I mean, Vine died as a platform, even though it was hugely successful, because it didn't listen to its creators. I know a lot of Viners, and they're like, they called us in, they asked us, how do we keep Vine alive? And then they did none of the things that we told them to do. Whereas YouTube, we're like, hey, your new analytics feature, you need this, this, and this. And they actively are like, okay, we will try to add those in, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and exactly to that point, just to color that with a couple of examples
yeah, of course.
Of what we mean when we say YouTube is better. Like Matthew said, we've had a lot of meetings with Twitch, with Facebook, and with YouTube. Twitch is a very nice company to work with. They're fine, but they spend a lot of time talking about Ninja right now, like so much time talking about Ninja. And then you go to places like Facebook where they're like, why would creators need to make money on our platform? We're going to run ads in front of their videos, then we're going to keep all that money. You should just be honored to be on Facebook. That's literally what they have told us. We had this meeting. Yeah, when we were like, hey, we want to bring our videos to Facebook, but hey, that takes a lot of work. We'd have to hire somebody else to help us change the videos enough to put them up on Facebook and run that and make it work. And we were like, you know, is there any way to make money by putting our videos on Facebook? And they were like, what do you mean? You should just want to be on Facebook.
Yeah,
you should just love Facebook.
The exact
Like,
response
what?
was, "Oh, you YouTubers always expecting to get paid for things."
Yeah,
And
it was like,
whoa. That is verbatim what it is, and we're like, no, like we just, because we're like, hey, we want to like do a series on Facebook. Like we see you as a valuable platform. Obviously, you have a lot of users, and you know, a lot of older people who use Facebook would enjoy
trashing these platforms.
I mean. Would enjoy, like, you know, some of our videos or like different types of our videos. We would like to do stuff with you. And they're like, okay, but we're like, in order to do that, like, it costs a lot of money to make our videos. Like, it is a lot. Each video that we produce is 100 hours across a lot of different people, and it's blood, sweat, and tears. And so, you know, is there any plans for monetization on Facebook? And they're like, not in the foreseeable future. And we're like, okay, that's, you know, or we can't tell you that, I think was the response. And we're like, okay, well, if it's not ready now, you know, will it be down the line? And they're like, oh, that's when they said, oh, you YouTubers always expecting to be paid for stuff. And we're like, okay, we're trying to have like a really nice conversation with these people and be like very patient with them. We're like, fine. Yes, I don't think it's unfair for us to say, like, hey, we're investing money in you. Is there any chance of getting it in return? So then why should we do videos on Facebook then? What is the value of doing videos on Facebook? And they're like, you'll get Facebook likes. This is seriously what we were told by someone whose job it was to recruit people, creators, onto their platform. And fast forward another year, and Stephanie is hired on to consult Facebook on why are there no creator communities on Facebook? Why is no one using our platform to create a community? Yeah. And it's like, what is wrong with it?
So we've had lots of these kinds of conversations. Now, flip that over to YouTube, and again, you know, we spilled the tea on YouTube during this as well, but we you know, we've worked on YouTube for a long time. We know a lot of the people who actually make the decisions about what gets added onto the platform and what doesn't, like what features they work on and stuff like that, which is incredibly humbling, and it's great. But literally, we have them sent. There's someone, you know, one of the high ups at YouTube who sends us an email every couple months and says, "What are we doing wrong? If you're not complaining, that means that everything must be great. And I know everything isn't great, so send us your list of complaints because we need to work on it." And they literally send us that email and ask, "What can we do better? Why, you know, what aren't you happy about? And what do you need to make making videos better? And what do you think other people like you would want to help them make videos too?" And they're the only platform that we've ever seen actually ask those questions and then actually like do something about them in their own slow kind of way.
That being said, they are terrible at talking about what they do, right? Like there's algorithm changes, there are policy changes, there are pieces of drama that pop up, and they are terrible at addressing them. It boggles our mind that YouTube, as a company who gives voices to so many different people, is so bad from a PR standpoint of defending themselves or talking about some of this stuff. And to your point, they know it and they're trying to get better about it. But at the end of the day, they're just a bunch of people who are like still kind of like awkward about the whole thing. And they're the problem that they always tell us, right? And when we're like, hey, why don't you tell people about algorithms? They're like, as soon as we do, those people off in the shadows of Russia who have these bot farms, who are churning out, you know, Spider-Man Elsa videos and raking in the dough off of exploiting kids as a weird, creepy man rolls around in a ball pit with a pregnant Elsa waddling around in the background. It's weird stuff. You know, as soon as we say anything about the algorithm, those people test it, like they will take that information and they will exploit it and they will, you know, throw off the system and it throws everything into chaos on the back end. And no, it doesn't affect you and your watch habits, but it affects all this other content that you don't see. And that's not including all the like criminal activity that goes up on, a pedophilic activity that goes up on there. All this stuff that like in our wildest dreams, like we don't think about because we're not awful, evil people, but they have teams dedicated to like finding and figuring out solutions for. And so, like, they're trying to, like, be more open-ended with it, with their kind of, like, here's our video series telling you, like, the algorithm's broken or the subscribe box isn't broken. And yeah, sometimes like it's cringy, and yeah, sometimes the information is like, yeah, are you sure about that one? But they do try to get better. And I've seen it from years of working with them that they do, that they are making changes and that their heart's in the right place. Again, when they make missteps, it's usually because of all the balances that they have to strike, and what we might want as creators might not apply to like the greater good of the ecosystem, and that sucks. But that's kind of the realities. And so they're trying to figure out better ways to support everyone across all content genres. So yeah, that's it. Hashtag not spawn. Because I give YouTube a really hard, we give YouTube a really hard time too.
Hey, man.
Hey.
Whoa.
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you again, and thanks for coming, by the way.
My pleasure.
Continue on this subject. I was some days ago listening to Jack Dorsey, the Twitter guy. Oh yeah, okay. I was listening to Jack Dorsey, the Twitter guy, talking about their algorithm and how they are like following behavior inside Twitter. I know that, I don't know that for a fact, but I think that YouTube, Instagram maybe, and other platforms are doing the same, sort of. And don't you think, or how do you think this is shaping the consumer behavior? I mean, the way, how that is affecting the way I watch my YouTube videos and stuff like that, and how does that affect you as a creator? I mean, you talked about a little bit already, but how my behavior change affects you through that algorithm?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, hugely.
Oh man, we are talking about all the gray areas today. This is great because again, to what we were just saying about like, look at all the people that this platform has to appeal to and balance the needs of. YouTube also is in a weird, and all the digital video platforms, but like let's use YouTube as the example because it's an easy one to talk about, is also in this position of users kind of self-select their way into their own content bubbles, right? Like, I only want to watch the things that I'm comfortable with. I only want to watch the things that agree with my viewpoint of the world. And so all these platforms want to keep you watching and listening and engaging for as long as possible, right? Like, regardless of like small tweaks to the algorithm, this and that, that is always kind of the foundational principle of any of these places. But by kind of feeding that into the algorithm and saying, do this, the algorithm learns, wow, humans are kind of bad in what they watch, right? Like, they seek out the exploitative stuff. They seek out the drama stuff. They seek out the, like, conspiracy theories and whatever that, like, from the outside perspective, is unhealthy. You know, it's not, they're not, given their druthers, very few people are actively seeking out the like educational videos or stuff like that.
Or at the very least, they just don't expand their horizons, right? Like you were saying, like how does this shape what you see? If the algorithms of these platforms only feed you what you like, you only ever see a very small number of things, and you're just not exposed to a whole slew of other things. It goes back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, where we were like, we watch as much content on YouTube as we possibly can, even if it's stuff we don't like, because it expands our understanding of what's out there, and it gives us a much better perspective as content creators on what we make just by seeing what else is out there. But
our recommendation page is such a hot mess. It is all over the place.
YouTube has no idea what to do with us. But to your point, most people aren't going to do that. They just go to YouTube and they watch what they like or wherever. And so that has a massive impact on not only what kind of stuff you like to watch, but the kind of stuff you like in the real world. Like, beauty is a really easy example to take, right? So there are some beauty and style channels on YouTube that only use very expensive makeup products, right? And so if those are the kinds of channels you like, those are the only ones you watch, it gets into your head over time that the only things you should be buying are the things that are really expensive, are the very expensive makeup products and the very expensive clothes and the Gucci and the designer and all of that stuff. And it's because you don't watch the stuff that shows you a different perspective, and then YouTube or wherever you're watching also doesn't show you another perspective. So the impact to not only people's perception of their own entertainment, but their actual perception of the world around them, what they buy, where they go, who they like, who they engage with. It could even shape, your friends and who you associate with in the real world if you're just not exposed to a wide enough variety of things. So it's a very strange time. It's a very interesting time because platforms are also recognizing how bad of a problem this is, right? So one of the things that YouTube has modified in the last, 6 months or something like that, is the introduction of, if you go to your YouTube recommendations page, your home pages, they have intentionally started inserting smaller channels into what you see. So you'll see channels that only have, maybe 50, 100,000 subscribers sometimes. They're up-and-coming channels, but they sort of relate to the general stuff that you like. So they're trying to expose you to more channels, and then also they're trying to expose you to more types of channels more actively. So they'll show you stuff that's not oh gosh, the worst is if you, what was the latest thing? The latest thing was watching a car run over something because it makes an interesting sound.
It's like the hydraulic press channels, except significantly less interesting.
Or the hot knife or whatever. This one was all about
hydraulic press is cool.
Yeah.
A car is just
you're just running over something with a car. But anyway, if you watched one of those videos, your entire recommendation page is all stuff being run over by cars. And then, but YouTube is starting to recognize hey, that's a big problem, and starting to not just narrow you into your corner quite as quickly, but it remains a big problem.
Yeah, it's again one of those weird ethical gray areas where, do you set the algorithm to just continually feed people what they want to watch, in which case you're just going to get kept in your own content bubble, or do they take away some of the ability? It's amazing. Or do they take away some of the valuable spaces on the home page in order to maybe surface things that are kind of tangentially related to what you might want to watch to expose you to new stuff? And you're starting to see the system start to play around with that to kind of, again, how is YouTube responding to changes and why they're bad about it? Like Stephanie said, 6 months to a year ago, YouTube's hey, we recognize that discoverability of small channels on the platform is very difficult. It is hard for small channels to find their audience and get discovered on the homepage, right? And so what they started to do was experiment, what percentage of that homepage should be dedicated to the stuff that they're subscribed to, that they watch, that, that they are always tuning into, versus how much of that do we want to surface smaller channels that do related stuff but isn't something that they've been exposed to before. And so through that, actually, I've been exposed to probably 10 of my new favorite film analysis channels because YouTube kind of took away that. And then, running that experiment, that drives more watch time for me as I go back through all those back catalogs and catch up on stuff that I didn't see before. So there is this give and take, but again, it's YouTube addressing problems that the platform has had and seeing finding where that balance sits. And it's a lot of complex solutions that are all hitting the fan right now that they're trying to work their way through. And so it's I would call this the awkward teenage years of YouTube, but also all these digital video platforms, right? Where they're going through they have the audience, and now they're going through the growing pains of now, how do we use this responsibly? Or not. Hopefully responsibly.
But yeah, how are we doing on time? Do we need to lightning round or anything? I know there are still a lot of people who had questions. I want to make sure that we get to people.
Oh, great. Yep. Yeah. Stop rambling incessantly? Okay, great. Awesome. This is why you can't have these discussions on Twitter. Well, let me explain.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hey, yes.
Hello, I'm Melina. Hi, Matt. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey.
I have roughly 3 questions, but I hope they're fast.
Okay.
The last time I saw you was when you were going to YouTube Red, and you are going into this parkour stuff and role-playing with SWAT team.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you decide in a business point of view, how do you decide which activity or which video to do. And a curiosity question is, what was the most dangerous or most exciting thing that you've done in these things? And also, last question for Stephanie. My question is, what are the biggest challenges for you as a woman, as a producer, as a partner, doing videos for these manly area as is gamers? You know, it's not easy, you know, guys. Yeah, right. You can see here that there are like 10 women for a bunch of 100 men. So I know.
I see you.
Yeah, it's not easy, and I know it must not be easy as a producer showing yourself in this area.
Oh
so
my
that's
God,
my question.
the entertainment. Stephanie can dish on entertainment in general, because holy jeez, the level of disrespect that Stephanie has gotten in the entertainment world with people who like just outright ignore it. It's terrible, but we'll get to that real quick.
Yeah.
No, sorry, am I stepping over you?
Mansplaining.
Am I mansplaining?
My gosh.
Am I spreading my man spread? Is that okay?
No, handle the first two first, and
yeah.
then I'll.
Okay, so because otherwise I'll forget them. So number one was how do we decide our programming calendar, and then things like YouTube Red, right? Or YouTube Premium.
Dangerous.
YouTube Premium
the
now.
most dangerous thing?
So basically, as we look at the programming calendar, we look at we kind of go through cycles of what do we know is going to be appealing to all the subscribers who love the show. And then balancing that out with, okay, what is a new topic that either I'm passionate about or that might be like a new trending game or something experimental that we can try. Like a franchise that we might not have covered before, a small indie title that people might not know about, but that we like or that might find us new audiences or things like that. And then always coming back to, okay, we did an experimental episode, let's go back to, you know, something that we know people are going to like. Because if you go for too long of a stretch of doing stuff that people, like, this isn't what I subscribe for, this is not a franchise that I care about, this isn't searchable, because again, YouTube is a search platform, your channel is going to suffer long-term as a result, right? So it's always about kind of like riding that balance of, I think this, based on the channel's history, based on what our audience likes, this is what's going to perform. This probably might not perform, but it's worth the risk. You know, this is a different topic that's interesting, and then let's go back to what's going to perform. Film theory is a great example of that right now, where we know for a fact that like animation and Marvel superheroes are kind of our like tent poles. Those are our consistent performers. 9 times out of 10, we know how those videos are going to do. But I'm like, hey, Bird Box was really interesting. You know, and it seems like a lot of people are talking about it. Is it in the wheelhouse of what we would normally do? It's a bit more mature than we would normally do, but because it's rated R. But let's try it, and it performed like, and it was a risk, and we did it long after the trend was passed. But it's like the top video of the last 2 months or whatever, and so it's one of those things that like from that we've seen a huge influx of new people going back through our back catalog, and so it was a risk that paid off. And then after that, we're like, okay, if that one underperforms, let's balance it out with a couple of animation things on the side. So like from a content calendar perspective, that's that balance that we're always kind of looking at. This like ebb and flow of finding new audience, trying new things, looking for whatever's searchable, and then going back to like the wheelhouses of the channel, what we know, what they're excited about. Most dangerous thing that I did or have done, riding an ostrich. So as part of Game Lab, the YouTube Premium show, one of the episodes was recreating riding a chocobo from Final Fantasy. And as a part of that episode, we found that you can actually race ostriches in the middle of the desert of Arizona. And so we partnered up with the ostrich rancher, and we're like, throw me on your, train us to be ostrich riders, and then let's do a race. The training of being an ostrich rider is literally sit on the ostrich and don't fall. Like, that is it. They're like, okay, an ostrich has a body that's shaped like a football. sit in the middle.
A U.S. football.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, U.S. football. It's shaped like a football. Sit in the middle. Don't slide too far forward, or you're gonna kill the ostrich. Don't slide too far back, or you're gonna get kicked by the ostrich, and you'll probably die. And don't hold on to the ostrich too tightly because you literally have nowhere to hold on to. So good luck. Boom! And then they throw open the gates, and it's just like, oh my god! It was the most aggressive and angry piggyback ride I have ever had. I fell off, and I like completely skinned my entire leg. It was bad. But it was like literally jumping out of a car that was moving at like 35 miles per hour. It was wild. It was so scary. It was incredibly dangerous. And it was really fun, and I would totally do it again.
And being a lady producer in entertainment, but also specifically in the gaming industry, one of the things I do have to say off the bat, and to a credit to the gentleman, is that when we really started publicly working together, because I was working for a long time behind the scenes. I mean, really, I've known Matthew since long before Game Theory started. Like, we've done this sort of as a partnership the whole way. But when I first started working with him publicly and started appearing on our live stream and stuff like that, we expected a lot of backlash, specifically from the gaming community. Women in gaming have a really hard time. They get harassed constantly. It's a really big problem. And I was in the extremely fortunate position to not experience what a lot of women go through in gaming, where they are stalked, harassed. They're given such a hard time, not only by guys, but also by other girls. And this sort of goes to just being in the entertainment in general. I've had a ton of experiences of being ignored, where people won't talk to me. They treat me like a secretary. They assume that I'm just sort of like an assistant and don't understand that I'm a business partner. And that has been, Matthew can tell you, we've had many conversations about this over the years where I've been upset, angry, frustrated, but it's been the kind of thing where I have a really strong belief in making your name because you deserve it and because you do good work. And so a lot of the times that I've been ignored, and a lot of the times that I have literally had people who refused to talk to me because they only want to talk to Matthew, have only inspired me to work harder and, be like, well, my work, I will do everything I can so that my work speaks for itself. And then on top of that, I've also learned that I have to be my own advocate because no one else will do it. And Matthew and I have run some fun experiments. So all this sounds kind of crummy, but it's led to some kind of funny moments. Like, Matthew and I have been in conversations together where he knows this happens. Like, he sees it. He's extremely supportive, like for his part, extremely supportive. And we've been in conversations where I've said something. We're talking to a guy, he's a media executive, like, he's got like money and power and whatever. And I say something and it completely ignored. No response. I mean, nothing. It's like I'm not even there. And then Matthew, seeing that this happens, will repeat exactly the same thing I've just said, literally word for word, and the person we're talking to will be like, what an amazing idea, that's incredible. And so you run into these sort of funny circumstances. I am pretty brilliant, Steph,
thank you. I'm glad that he recognizes it.
But you run into these situations, and yes, it's really frustrating. And I don't have a solution for it. It does happen. It absolutely happens. And no matter how long we work together, it still happens. But I've learned to be louder, be more assertive, but I'm not mean, just assertive, and to try and make people feel comfortable talking to me and let them know that, like, hey, we work together a lot. Like, I can probably talk to you about a lot of the same things that Matthew can talk to you about. Also, just as a fun fact, when we go into a business meeting, people talk to Matthew a lot, but often don't realize that if I don't like them, we don't do the business with them. So they might not know it, but there are two deciders here, and at the end of the day, that's kind of what matters to me. The last thing I will say is that it hurts the most when women criticize other women. Like for guys, you're like, okay, you know, this happens. There are wonderful guys in the world. There are crummy guys in the world, you know, like everybody, whatever. It actually hurts a bit more when women criticize other women or try and take women down or ignore them or treat them like secretaries just because they work with a guy. So one thing that I try and do, for my part, is be really supportive of the other women in the industries I work with. I recommend them for things all the time. I pass their names along to people where they can speak publicly at events, where they can get their names out there, and where they can show off like how smart they are. It's not that they like need the help because they're not smart enough. It's just that they haven't had the opportunity to showcase that. And so I think it's really helpful when women support other women and avoid, you know, just avoid being catty or taking them down.
That wasn't much of a speed round, Steph.
Thanks guys.
We are not good at speed rounds.
No, we're not good at speed. Okay, next. That was 3 questions.
It was true.
Yeah, okay. I have also 3 questions.
Oh my gosh! It's always when we are like, okay, we got like a limited time left. Everyone's like, and here's my 5-part dissertation.
No, go for it. We're gonna do it.
Okay. The first one is about when you first started with the series, how far did you plan to go? Like, you do, okay, let me do something I like, something I want to do, and if it turns well, okay, I continue, or no, I will make this the channel that you think the channel is today.
Yep.
That's my first question. And
Okay.
if you have like a tip for
Yep.
someone who, sorry.
No, go ahead, keep going.
If you have like a tip for someone who wants to start to develop something. My second question, it's about, it's not a question, it's like my desire. Why did you never make like a Kingdom Hearts theory? Austin did one, but he was wrong.
That's why I never did a Kingdom Hearts theory. Right there. No, go ahead.
And the third one, it's about, I think, one of the most popular theories that you have on YouTube. What's in the box?
Okay, cool. So 3 real quick things. Question 1 was, how long did we plan to do the channel in the early days, right? Or how long did we anticipate doing the show before like throwing it away or doing whatever? Honestly, the whole show started as a means of getting a job, right? It was a resume boosting activity. It wasn't to earn money. It wasn't for like, you know, success or fame or anything like that. It was literally just to get me a job so that way I wouldn't be a deadbeat that Stephanie had to support. And literally no one wanted to hire me. And so I'm like, please watch this thing and, you know, it's on a resume and maybe they'll see I'm smart. And so when I got the job, it was my anticipation that that was when the show would end, honestly. It served its purpose. I have a job now. I no longer have tremendous amounts of free time because I'm not just like lounging around the house in my pajamas sending out job applications all day. So, and then researching like green pipe history, episode 2 on the side. So I have better things to do now. But at that point, 2 things kept it going, right? One was the fact that my job was tied to YouTube, right? And it was me as an analyst helping other YouTubers figure out the system, how to use their data to help grow their channels. And so I'm like, well, I should keep doing the channel because it'll help me be better at my job, right? I can use it as an experimental testing ground to run experiments and then tell bigger creators than me who I'm working with at my job to like, hey, have you tried this? It worked on this channel in a small scale testing experiment, like here, go over here. But then the other reason was because at that point when I got the job, I had 30,000 subscribers. And I'm like, man, 30,000 people are excited about what we do. I owe it to them to keep delivering them content. Like they're excited about it. I'm still enjoying making it. It would be wrong of me to just like give up when I had achieved my goal, right? Like I guess it wouldn't necessarily be wrong, but like, because it is my show, but it was one of those things that I'm like, we are literally creating a community here. And they're excited about what we're doing. Like, I want to keep making them happy. I want to keep giving them the stuff that they're excited to watch. And I think that we can do good work with the channel. And so that's why it kept going. And then at a certain point, it got too hard again because my job, I was like nights and weekends, all hours of the day. And so I'm like, maybe when I hit 1 million subscribers, like that's when I'll cut it off, because then I'll have achieved all of the goals that you can get on YouTube. That was the final achievement, right? The diamond play button didn't exist. But then I did it, and I'm like, this is just, like at this point, it's like there's so many people, and you know, and now it can become its own business, and this, like, so there was a lot of things that kept it going. So that was question 1. Question 2 was
Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts is exactly the reason you said. For me to do a theory on Kingdom Hearts, especially a lore theory, which is what I would want to do, the lore of that game is so complicated that it would require an entire episode or 2 just to get everyone caught up on the lore and understanding it for, like, episode 3, when I'm finally like, here's why I had to catch you up on, like, all this complicated history of Kingdom Hearts Key and Kai and this and that. So that way you could understand that Xemnas is actually Xenonord, who is the nobody of Aqua. Boo! You're like, you know, it loses all meaning at that point, right? Everyone's like, I don't know, Xemnas from Xenord from, you know, what happened to the days when it was just Ansem, right? So that was actually part of the reason why, like, to this day, I'm still looking at ways to do Kingdom Hearts, especially now that Kingdom Hearts 3 is done, but not from a lore perspective. I'm looking at it from, like, what science angles can we do, what physics, like, what other things can we do with the series. I'm looking into, like, who's the deadliest Disney character in the franchise. I'm tossing around a bunch of ideas. It's going to make a cameo in one that's coming up in the next couple weeks about, like, video game universes and stuff. But yeah, it's just one of those franchises that's really hard to tackle and cover.
What's in the box?
And then what's in the FNAF box? So I'm excited about this one. First off, I do think that, like, my original theory about what's in the box is accurate, right? Where it changed 3 times over the course of its development. We actually did an episode on this. I don't know if you saw it. But that what is in the FNAF box has changed multiple times. Scott has actually confirmed that in an interview that he did with Dawko on his channel. It's okay if you didn't watch it because it's like 90 minutes. It's really long, and Scott became a meme because he kept saying, like, I forget what he kept saying. He kept having some verbal pause and it became a meme, whatever. But I think what was in the box changed 3 times. That being said, we have just come with all the theories that we're doing around the zoo level in Accounting Plus, which is this VR game, which is very cool. It's made by the creators of Rick and Morty and the Stanley Parable. If you haven't checked out Accounting Plus, it is a fascinating game with this really interesting mystery of a level that's been teased since the get-go that is so deeply buried in this game's code that it can't be found. But there are clues everywhere that this thing exists, right? We have finally gotten in contact with someone who is able to dig deep into, like, layers of code beyond what we've been able to scrape in the past. And so now we're in the process of mapping out that full game, figuring out where all those things trigger in the actual game's code, not like the asset files and this and that, but like down to like the actual like game code files and the programming language to figure out where that is. As soon as we're done with the zoo level, I'm putting this guy back onto the FNAF 4 box so we can see if there actually are triggers in the game's coding to release those locks and figure out how to open it. So see if it was ever meant to be opened in the first place or if it was always meant to be kind of this like perpetual Easter egg. So that's kind of where we're headed on that one. Yeah, it's just layers of coding language that none of us ever had. And especially like it takes a lot of time to actually dig through how all that code is written out. And so we're figuring out efficient ways to do that. We're figuring out the process for that. And hopefully we can actually come to a conclusive answer about like, was that all just kind of a cliffhanger from the get-go, or were there actual triggers that opened that box? So we'll see. Question, speed round. Yes, hey.
Hey. Hi, Matt. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey.
I actually wanted to make 2 questions, but I think it wouldn't be fair to the other people who are waiting in line. So
okay. Toss them out. We'll answer them fast.
Okay. First one, you started making partnerships with many other channels, like Edging Goomba at the start of your channel, but now you guys are really, really big. And how did the concept of partnering with other channels change as you grew the channel? And the second question is about GT Live, because I watch it sometimes and there are many, many questions. There are many people commenting at a really fast pace. how do you handle the community and the questions at such a high pace, doing the stream at the same time? Because that seems impossible. I try to read the questions, I can't do the two at the same time.
Yep. So you can handle GT Live.
Yeah.
For the partnership side of things, it was all kind of like I mentioned earlier. It was all founded on this idea of we are stronger working together than we are apart. Right? I can only produce one video a week max. Like that is capping out all my abilities, all the editor's abilities. Like that is what we can do. Like, and that is already really tough to maintain. So we needed other content to kind of fill up the calendar and like bring people back to the channel midweek. And so that's where, you know, in the early days, partnerships with other creators became a thing, and it kind of persisted up until recently. The only reason it's changed, and in my ideal world, that would stay the case forever. Like, I love having a platform where we can lift up other creators and give them the spotlight that they deserve, without having to go through all that mess of like, you know, years of grinding to get by, where they can get, you know, monetization better. And honestly, like, we would also help sell brand deals on their channel. Like, we gave them pass-through of all their revenue, this and that. Like, it was a really great deal for them. The problem is YouTube's algorithm nowadays actually punishes channels, and this goes back to the earlier question, I don't know where she went, about like how we program the channel. Any partner show, because I'm not hosting it, and any show that isn't game theory or film theory, quite honestly, gets a fraction of the views that that those series do. And as a result, YouTube is very momentum-based nowadays, right? I keep doing this hand gesture when I talk about our programming schedule, when I talk about, like, yeah, we do a wheelhouse video, and then we do an experimental one, then we do a wheelhouse video, then we do an experimental one. YouTube is very momentum-based, right? You're either rising or you're falling. It used to be, in the early days, you would hit plateaus. You would be like, I have a big hit video, and I spike, and now I plateau at this level. And I have another big hit video, and I spike, and I plateau a little bit higher. Now it's this constant ebb and flow of views. There is no stability, really. There's no stable state quite as much. And so what we kept seeing in the data was that when the partners would upload, they would get like 50% of the views, maybe 75%, but the algorithm, the next game theory would have to work extra hard to kind of correct for the momentum shifts that the algorithm was seeing there, right? And so it was one of those things that like we were kind of fighting this like slow losing battle of like a slow decline.
Yeah, the stuff on the channel when we had more partner shows, basically they would fight with each other and they would fight with game theory, and not in a way that we could control, just all based on how much visibility each of those episodes would get. And so it became this thing where, like to Matthew's point, game theory had to fight back to help the channel back up after every single partner upload, and it got to the point where it got to be something that we couldn't control for anymore, and YouTube systems just really didn't reward that kind of partnership, which was really sad for us, actually. But the flip side is that for the time that the partners were on those channels, which was for some cases like 3-4 years, they were able to build their own channels and their own businesses on the side. And so I think all of them are still able to be independent content creators now, completely on their own. They don't need any help from us. We were able to like kind of, you know, send them out of the nest and they were able to, you know, be perfectly fine on their own, which, you know, again, to Matthew's point, we would still use the same model today if that were possible on the channel, but given that it's not, at least we were able to help, you know, at least half a dozen other creators like make established names for themselves.
And then as far as GT Live comments.
Oh yeah, we get a lot of comments. We get a lot of comments, up to 900,000 comments per live stream on GT Live, if you can believe that, in 90 minutes. So it's a little bit crazy. So I can't see any of the comments as they scroll by, ever. I have to stop the comment thread if I ever want to actually read them. And so if we're trying to get a read on, hey, do people like this? What do they want to see? What questions are they trying to ask? That kind of stuff. I literally have to scroll, stop, scroll, stop, scroll, stop. and see what questions are popping up the most. And we try to address people's questions on the live stream by frequency. So if I see the same question 3 or 4 times, every time I'm like, scroll, stop, then we know, like, okay, we need to talk about that question. We need to change what we're doing. We need to take people's advice in the game, and stop being so stubborn and just take people's advice and let them help us solve the puzzles. But it's one of those things where it's a double-edged sword, because we're extremely lucky to have a community that's that engaged, but it's also really difficult to manage. One of the great things that's happened, I think, because it's been a very positive and uplifting community in general, is that a lot of times people don't actually need us to answer a lot of the questions that they have. They've created a network among themselves so that we're nice to have around, but we're not necessary. Like when people go on Twitter and they use the GT Live hashtag, other people who are fans of GT Live will chime in. They'll give them information about the live stream, what we played, where to find the latest episode. They'll answer questions about, what have we played before? What are we going to play? What's Matthew's favorite color? The community knows so much because they've watched the live streams, they know us so well that they actually are in a position where they can support themselves a lot of the time. So even if we are getting 900,000 comments on a single live stream, which is an impossible volume to ever address, a lot of the people in those comments are actually answering each other's questions and helping each other out, and the same goes on Twitter.
Pessoal, agora a gente vai para a última questão, tá? A última pergunta.
Okay, so good night. Hi, both of you. So just to give some context out, I started a new channel recently, and I'm really proud of the work I'm making and happy with it. And people seem to be giving me positive feedback on it. However, I can't seem to find a big growth or growing overall. So my question is, do you have any tips on spreading now the word of, hey, I exist? So that's the question.
A couple quick things, and not knowing exactly what you're doing, but a couple like very general tips off the top of your head, or off the top of our heads. One, and I'm going to talk about this in my speech here and after this question, I guess. One is, have you looked at your analytics and seen how people are watching your video, how long they're watching it, where they're dropping off, and what they're responding to? That'll help you refine your content to make sure that it's driving as long of watch sessions as possible and it's as appealing to your audience as possible. So your analytics are super powerful. So I'd look at your retention time graphs. I'd also look at suggested video traffic and how that's going. The most important traffic source for any growing channel or someone who's looking to kind of like expand their wheelhouse or their audience base is from suggested video. And so look in your analytics and see like, hey, there's a tab called traffic sources, and within that tab you can say suggested video, and from there it'll tell you what other videos your video is being suggested against. Look at what you're being suggested against and how many views are coming in from those, and see, are those the right videos that I should be getting suggested against? Are they like-minded creators? Are they doing similar stuff? Like, does that make sense or does it not? And if it doesn't, that's probably something to do with your metadata, your titles, tags, and description. Yeah, and that's actually kind of what it most likely has to do with.
The other hacky way to get bursts of subscribership are collabs. So as you're looking at other things that you're suggested against, if there are other creators that are at your size or around about your size and are think like you and you think your audiences may overlap, collabs honestly are sort of like it's not cheating, it's totally fair, but are like the quick way to get little bursts. So if you do have those opportunities, especially early on, take them. Just take them, and it doesn't matter if like the person you're collabing with doesn't need to have 1 million or 5 million or whatever, so like huge subscriber numbers. If they're a similar audience and their audience just shares the same kind of love that your audience does, you will see a benefit, and over time those little bursts will add up to bigger momentum.
Yep. And remember that at the end of the day, YouTube is a search platform, like I alluded to earlier. So doing things on topics that work with your audience, right, and work within the content that you're doing, but are topical in that content category is important. That's another unfortunate truth of how YouTube has kind of evolved over the years. Would I love to do more episodes on retro video games and stuff? Absolutely. I wish we could dive into like Frogger again and stuff like that. But by the nature of YouTube, it's harder and harder to do that sort of stuff just because everything has to be so trendy in order to maintain the the stability of the channel. And so that's the other thing that I would say there is in your suggested video traffic, you should see it. But just, be aware of content trends that are happening in your vertical and what are people talking about and whether you can do a video on it. I mentioned film theory and Bird Box. That was kind of an experiment for us. We did it a little bit after the trend, but it did really well for us. Every once in a while, you do something and you're really surprised by kind of the results it gives and the influx of audience that you get as a result.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for sticking around. This was really long.
This is super long. And now I'm moving over there for another hour, so there you go.